and welcome to a new Quran study. And today, God willing, we're gonna read from Surah 4, verse 78. I seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. God is the door of everything. Wherever you are, death will catch up with you, even if you live in formidable castles. When something good happens to them, they say, "This is from God." And when something bad affects them, they blame you. Say, "Everything comes from God." Why do these people misunderstand almost everything? And the footnote says, "Bad things are consequences of our own deeds." See verse 42 to 30 and verse 64:11. Though God is the doer of everything. 8:17. God created the fire to serve us, but you can decide to put your finger in it without hurt ourselves. It is God's law that if you put your finger in the fire, it will hurt. So, mashallah, here it's very important message from God. When He mentioned, He said, "Wherever you are, that will catch up with you, even if you are inside, you know, formidable castles, inside the towers, or that build strong or and high, you know, and and that's a message to us, uh, a reminder that no matter how safe you feel, or how protected you think you are in a mansion or in a hospital in the best country in the world, etc. That still comes because it comes by God's will only. And of course, it's it's returning back to the one who sent us here in the first place. So, mashallah, and then God says, when something good happens to them, they say, "This is from God," but when something bad hits them, they blame you. S- So here, we know that some people do this. When life gets easy, they say, "Thank God," but when it gets hard, they start blaming others, or blaming people, the systems, even God himself. They can blame, be he glorified, as if he wronged them. You know, some people exist who think like that. But here God teaches us, by saying, say everything comes from God, which is God is doing everything, you know. And when something hurts us, it's usually us using what God created in the wrong way. As it mentioned in the footnotes, God created a fire, which is a blessing, because we can do many things with the fire. We can cook food, keeps us warm, give us energy, etc. But if you put your finger in it, you get burned. That's the system, right? So that means that the fire is not evil, right? And it means that God doesn't hurt us, right? But it was our choice actually that that we make to interact with His creation in a way He warned us, not to do. So um, this is the same with every pain. Sometimes we get hurt because of our sins, our ego, or bad choices we make, our arrogance, etc. But Still, God is doing everything, mashallah. And verse 79, nothing bad comes from God. Anything good that happens to you is from God, and anything bad that happens to you is from you. We have sent you as a messenger to the people, and God suffices as a witness. MashaAllah. So here God is telling us something very profound, which is nothing bad comes from God. So here we can remember all the good things in in our life. For example, the peace of our mind we feel, the safety we have, the breath you are taking right now, comes directly from Him, mashallah. So even the things you didn't ask for example, just let's say a random kind word from a stranger, or an opportunity that opened, or for, you know, all of that, it's actually from God. It's a mercy from Him. And He said, anything bad that happens to you is from yourself. So God is telling us here that if something hurts, you know, you should look. It might be because you did something wrong, against God's teachings, for example. It means that you stepped out of His path, out of His kingdom. For example, I can give some examples. You ignored a warning, for example, or let's say you rushed a decision, you treated someone unfairly, or you simply didn't trust God, for example. You know, um, yeah. So it's like walking through a garden. Imagine a garden full of both lights, and thorns. So God gives you a map, right? A lamp and signs along the path. So if you follow, you walk safely. But if you choose to close your eyes and walk off the path, you get uh, actually scratched. Not because God wanted to hurt you, of course, but because you walked away from the light. And that was a choice. And that's exactly what happened, when we step out of God's kingdom. Of course, as we know, Satan catches us with misery and troubles, etc. So, so here is, a God's way of saying, like, you have no excuse now. I sent you someone to show you the way, which is the messenger, my Quran, my signs, you know, and I myself watching over the truth of all of this be glorified. And the footnote says Muhammad was not given any proof of prophethood. Hence, the expression God suffices as a witness, um, uh, 29, 51, 52. The geometrical value of Muhammad is 92, and 92 plus 79 uh, give 171, which is 19 multiply of 9. Uh, so here we know that Muhammad, the prophet, was not given any proof of uh, prophethood, which means that he didn't come with miracles uh, like Moses, for example, parting the sea, or raising the dead, etc. The kind of physical signs that people often asked for. So instead, his message itself, which is the Quran, was the proof. And this is why the verse says God is enough as a witness, right? Um, so in other words, even if people demand more proof, God's testimony is enough. Okay, so the message um, speaks for itself, the Quran, and God is the ultimate witness. That is the truth. And as we know that after years, we discover that the Quran itself has a miracle hidden and was um, predetermined that's gonna be revealed by the message of the messenger of the covenant, mashallah. But at that time, it was the Quran itself was enough, and God was witness, mashallah. Um, verse 80. Whoever obeys the messenger is obeying God, and as for those who turn away, we did not send you as their guardian. So, mashallah, this is a very important point. And when God says, whoever obeys the messenger is, actually obeying God. And as for those who turn away, he's saying that you're not responsible for them, speaking with the messenger. So we need to understand what does it mean. So, mashallah, when the verse says obeying the messenger, it's not about following his personal habits, for example, like what he wore, what he eat, or how he, behave, or it's not about his copying, of course, his everyday lifestyle as a human being, as some, Sunnist belief in traditional Islam, uh, you know. So the real focus here is when the messenger delivers God's message, obeying that is obeying God, you know. Why? Because he's simply, you know, passing on what God revealed. That's his role, to deliver, not to be worshipped or imitated in every detail, right? And the verse also says, clearly, we didn't send you as their guardian. So, in other words, the messenger, of course, isn't in charge of people's personal choices because his job is just to deliver clear message, you know, and what people do with it, it's up to them. That's it. Um, so, so the important message here is that our obedience is to the truth that comes from God through His messenger, not to the messenger's personal references or lifestyle, because we know that he's human and humans can make mistakes, but the message from God is pure, perfect, and complete, mashallah. 81. They pledge obedience, but as soon as they leave you, some of them harbor intentions contrary to what they say. God records their innermost intentions. You should disregard them and put your trust in God. God suffices as an advocate. MashaAllah. So here it says they pledge obedience, but as soon as they leave you, some of them harbor intentions contrary to what they say. So here, this is about hypocrites, right? Um, Hypocrisy means that, you know, when someone, he's saying the right thing in public, but hiding something, else in their heart. That's hypocrisy. And they say, yes, we will obey, we follow the prophet, but as soon as they're out of sight, um, they make the opposite. Um, and that's bring us, a shocking truth, which is not everyone who, might look religious or speaks about God or, say that I'm a submitter is sincere, right? And because hypocrites exist, and God says God records their innermost, their innermost intentions. Um, here why they do that? Why hypocrites exist? Because hypocrites act like that like that because they want to appear loyal, without um, truly, um, committing, right? They say the right things, just to gain trust or avoid trouble or, get some benefits or, they have, selfish motives in general, and their hearts don't match their words. And that's what, makes them hypocrites. So God says about them to the messenger, disregard them and put your trust in God. God suffices as an advocate. So here, God is, your advocate, your defender, your witness, your protector. So let them plot and scheme, let them pretend, let them walk away, as long as you stay with God sincere, as long as you trust God in God, then God Himself is enough. MashaAllah. That's a very comfortable advice to the messenger. Everyone must follow his, uh, I mean, submission. Um, Proof of divine authorship. Why do they not study the Quran carefully? If it were from anyone other than God, they would have found many contradictions in it. The footnote says, although the Quran was revealed during the Dark Ages, we cannot find any nonsense in it. Another proof of divine authorship. See the appendix, the introduction and the appendix one. MashaAllah. Um, so here we see that this verse, it's not just a statement, it's a challenge, and wake up call. So, for example, we see that over 100, 1,400 years um, before that, that time we call it Dark Ages. And Think about, when that Quran, this Quran revealed, it was revealed before this, around this age, uh, around this time. Still no contradiction, no nonsense, no error, mashallah. And the Quran, speaks science, speaks history, speaks human nature, in very miraculous way. Because as we know, at that time, there is no schools, no libraries, technology or anything. Science was not existed yet, it was just uh, not developed yet, like nowadays, mashallah. So, and even that, we see that this book, mashallah, the Quran mentions something very advanced. For example, it mentions embryology with perfect accuracy. Also describes human psychology in ways we still study today, and brings laws that reform the broken world. Um many things, subhanallah. And the more you study it, the more you believe. So no matter what your level of knowledge, the Quran, still speaks to you at your level, subhanallah. And God says, if it were from other than God, you would have found many contradictions. Subhanallah. So, for example, if someone tell you, how do you know the Quran is really from God? You don't have, you don't argue, just invite them. Just say, read it, study it, let the Quran speaks for itself, because the Quran isn't afraid of questions. God encourage, uh, questions, studying, that's why we study Quran, mashallah. God isn't insecure. He invites, the world with very confidence, subhanallah. Because the Quran, it's a miracle from God. No mistakes, no contradictions, mashallah. Um, uh, 83. Beware of devil's rumors. When a rumor that affects security comes their way, they spread it. Had they referred it to the messenger and to those in charge among them. Um, those who understand these matters would have informed them. If it were not for God's grace towards you and His mercy, you would have followed the devil except a few, mashallah. So here God mentions those in charge among them, and we need to reflect on this. So here I want to say that it doesn't necessarily mean scholars or religious figures. It means, anyone appointed or trusted with responsibility in the believers' community, right? So that could be, for example, a leader of a group or a judge or a guardian or person chosen to handle a sensitive task, for example, or someone put in charge of making decisions that protect the well-being of others, for example. You know, that's means people in general, people of trust, okay, and not necessarily people of knowledge, but people who carry responsibility on behalf of the group. So, um, so here, not everyone needs to speak on everything. and not everyone is qualified to carry or confirm serious information. And God is teaching us here a rule of safety. For example, when something dangerous, fearful, or sensitive, you know, reaches you, bring it to those who are responsible. Don't rush to share it with everyone. Why? Because um, wrong information spreads like fire, really, and can cause damage. And God says those who understand these matters would have informed them. And so we see here that it means if it had gone to the right people, those entrusted with responsibility, they would have, uh, dealt with it properly, with wisdom, with calm, with protection for the community. Um, Also, God says, if it were not for God's grace and mercy, you would have followed the devil except a few. Um, so we see here, as we know, of course, that devil doesn't, you know, um, need you to lie. He just need you to react without thinking, or to forward something scary, or to speak out of fear, or to panic. That's what devil needs us to do. And God says, if I didn't protect you with my mercy, you would fall for this, just like most people do. But God here is protecting us, so we really should be among those who reflect before they react, and those who seek the truth, before um, they speak. MashaAllah. 84. You should fight for the cause of God. You are responsible only for your own soul, and exhort the believers to do the same. God will neutralize the power of those who disbelieve. God is much more powerful and much more effective. MashaAllah. So, God here mentioned fighting the cause of God, as we know from the Quran. It's not only about war. When God mentioned fight in the cause of God, it can means also striving and stand firm for the truth, for justice, and um, values that God commands us to carry, and but in times of war, like in some historical context, it means, defending the believers' community uh, when uh, when it gets attacked by the enemy. But even then, God made it very clear that fight only uh, uh, permitted in self-defense, and also do not transgress limits during that. And also something else, stop fighting if the enemy stops. Also, we should, um, what else? Also, it should, it should be also preserved. So, fighting the cause of God was never about aggression or domination, but about protecting, and stopping oppression and freeing people, to choose God, without or choose, their belief or faith without fear. Um, You are responsible only for your own soul. Um, so God is telling his messenger and us also that you can't carry people, you can't force them. You're only responsible for what you choose to do. So you may call people, you may advise them, um, but at the end of the day, you are only, accountable for your own soul. So, so don't carry guilt for those who don't listen, or, you know, don't exhaust yourself trying to save people, who don't want to be saved or to follow the path. So just do your part, and God sees it. That's it. And God says, and exhort the believers to do the same. So, you have to motivate others, encourage them, remind them that standing for the truth is worth it, even if the world, misunderstands you. Or, because this is part of our mission as a uh, submitters to inspire other, one another, especially when the war is getting crazy. Um, so if someone is tired, for example, reminds them of God. If someone is afraid, remind them, that God is with the believers. And also, if someone is silent, reminds them that silence doesn't protect the truth, etc. Right? So, um, and also God says God will neutralize the power of those who disbelieve. So, mashallah, this is um, the comfort. You're not fighting alone. You're not insane. You are not weak. God says that that He will take care of the power um, in balance, and He will bring down those who stand against His message. MashaAllah, that's God's system. We should trust in it. We should believe in it because that's what makes us, strong and steadfast. MashaAllah. Um, God is much more powerful and much more effective. MashaAllah. So God ends the verse with this beautiful that's a reminder that no matter how strong the enemy looks, or no matter how loud the lies are outside, or no matter how weak you feel right now, God is more powerful, and you know God's plan is always effective. MashaAllah. Um, 85 responsibility. Whoever mediates a good deed receives a share of the credit thereof, and whoever mediates an evil work incurs a share thereof. God controls all things. MashaAllah. Um, so we see here that this verse is about responsibility. So not just for what you do, but for what you encourage others to do, right? So if you help, for example, someone, to do good, support them, guide them, even just speak up for them, you share in the reward, right? But if you push someone towards something wrong, for example, or help spread harm, even indirectly, you carry part of that too. So this the message is very clear. Like um, I mean, you can influence, and your influence matters, and God sees it. whether it's good or bad, you're part no, of what you help. mashallah. You should be courteous. When greeted with a greeting, you should respond with a better greeting, or at least an equal one. God reckons all things. MashaAllah. So here, when someone, for example, greets you kindly, God tells you, don't ignore it, don't be cold. Just reply with something, even better or at least equal, mashallah. And it's not just about, manners, it's about growing your soul this way. Um, because even a simple word is recorded by God. So respond, with kindness because God sees everything, even the small things. For 87, God, there is no God except He. He will surely summon you on the day of resurrection, the inevitable day. Those narration is more truthful than God's. So, mashallah, here there is no God except God, and it's a reminder that there will be a day of resurrection, uh, a real, unavoidable day when everyone will be brought back and held accountable. And then the verse asks a powerful question, who speaks more truth, truthfully than God? Um, it's like saying, if you can trust anyone's word, it's him, it's his word, it's God's word. So no one is more honest, more clear, more reliable. Uh, so if God says the day is coming, then you can be sure it's not, just a theory, it's a fact. MashaAllah. 88. How to deal with the hypocrites. Why should you divide yourself into two groups regarding the hypocrites among you? God is the one who condemned them because of their own behavior. Do you want to guide those who are sent astray by God? However, God sends astray, you can never find a way to guide them. So here, God says, why should you divide yourselves over the hypocrites? So here, God is, talking to the believers, not for fighting the hypocrites, but for, arguing with each other about how to treat them. So, what kind of division is this? Because some believers might say, about the hypocrites, of course, they gonna be divided into two groups. So some believers might say, let's give them, for example, another chance, or like we shouldn't be too harsh. They're still part of the community, etc. Right? While the other group the believers can say that, oh, they are, troublemakers, they betrayed us, they left the truth willingly, they are a danger, to our unity, and we must be deal with them with firm, etc. You know, and this creates two groups, not among the hypocrites, but among the believers themselves. So God here saying, why why are you dividing yourselves for people who are already turned away? So it's like you want to say that you're just wasting energy, weakening your unity and creating arguments about people who choose to to just betray. And And God mentioned that because this this is a serious problem. God sees serious problem. Why? Because division among the believers is more dangerous than the hypocrites themselves. Because hypocrites, pretend to be loyal, but act in secret to harm the community. But when the believers, turns against each other, it opens the door to confusion, to distrust, distraction from the real danger, right? So that's why God says, He's saying, don't lose focus. The hypocrites made their choices. So that's it, don't let their, I mean, um, betrayal become a reason for you to, to fall into conflict. 89. They wish that you disbelieve as they have disbelieved, so you become equal. Do not take them as friends unless they mobilize with you in the cause of God. If they turn against you, then fight them, and you may kill them when you encounter them in war. Do not accept them as friends or allies. And the footnote says the basic rule controlling all fighting is stated in 68:9. MashaAllah. So here, God is continue to speak about the hypocrites, who hide among believers, but their heart are with the disbelievers and working against the truth. So, God mentioned they want you to disbelieve. Why? Because they left the truth and now they feel exposed. So they don't want to be alone in their betrayal. So they want you, or to fall too. So they don't feel guilty or judged. That's why. And God says, do not take them as a friends. And this isn't, talking about normal people, who don't believe. No, it's about those who pretended to believe, then betrayed the message, and now, work against the believers. So God says, don't consider them friends unless they show, the true change and join you honestly in the cause of God. And the footnotes point the basic rule that of fighting in the Quran. So it clarifies that the believers are not told to fight or avoid all disbelievers, only those who are actively hostile, who fight the believers because of their religion or drive them out of their homes. But if people don't show that kind of aggression, then God, permits kindness and even peaceful relations with them. So the warning, in the verse we just read, is specifically about the dangerous hypocrites, who turns to war and betrayal, not about all non-believers. 90. Exempted are those who join people with whom you have signed a peace treaty, and those who come to you wishing not to fight you, nor fight their relatives. Had God willed, He could have permitted them to fight against you. Therefore, if they leave you alone, refrain from fighting you, and offer you peace, then God gives you no excuse to fight them. So here God mentioned those exempted from fighting. Um, and it mentioned two groups. So the first group is those who will have peace treaties. Treaties with you, which is agreements, that protect both sides. And also those who come to you not to fight nor to harm their own people connected to you. So God reminds us that if He had wanted, He could have allowed them to fight too, but He did not. Um, so you have no excuse to fight them. If they leave you alone and they don't attack anymore or fight you, um, that's it. Okay, so moving to the next verse, 91. You will find another who wish to make peace with you and also with their people, who, however, as soon as war erupts, they fight against you. Unless these people leave you alone, offer you peace, and stop fighting you, you may fight them. When you encounter them uh, against this, we give you a clear authorization. So, mashallah, God mentioned another situation describing a type of people who seem like they want peace, but in reality, their actions show something different. Okay, um, so on the surface, they say they want to get, along both with you and with others, but when the conflict starts, they quickly turns against you. So so here the message is about dealing with people, who um um their actions don't match their words. It's a reminder to be wise, to watch not just what people say, but what they actually do. So here, for example, peace is always better, but real peace means, that both sides should stop to harm, okay? But if the other side keeps, crossing the line and etc., then you're given the right to protect yourself clearly and, confidently by God authorization, of course, mashallah. You should not kill. 92. No believer should kill another believer unless it is an accident. If one kills a believer by accident, he should atone by freeing a believing slave and paying a um, compensation to the victim's family, unless they forfeit such a compensation as a charity. If the victim belonged to people who are at war with you, though he was a believer, you should atone by freeing a believing slave. If he belonged to people with whom you have signed a peace treaty, you should pay the compensation in addition to freeing a believing slave. If you cannot find a slave to free, you should atone by fasting 2 consecutive months in order to be redeemed by God. God is nowhere most wise. And the footnote says, since slavery does not exist, the offender must atone by fasting 2 consecutive months. Mashallah. So here, God mentions something very serious, which is about life and how deeply valuable it is. It says a true believer should never ever kill another believer except by mistake, you know. And here it tells us, how sacred human life is, and it's nothing to take lightly. So, but there is some, situations recognized that accidents can happen. Okay, for example, someone could be in the wrong place or at the wrong time, or misunderstanding could go too far, and someone loses their life without it being intentioned. Um, Here, in this case, the person, for example, who caused the death doesn't just, but I mean, by mistake, I'm talking here, because it's someone who caused death by mistake, not intentionally. Here, here it doesn't, he doesn't have to just walk away, and uh, he still needs to do something. Uh, here, so God mentioned what he should do in this situation. The person should uh, free a slave, which means giving someone else their freedom, to honor the life that was lost. And that was in the past. Here now there is no slavery anymore. Um, also, paying something to the victim's family, um, unless they decide to let it go. Um, and of course, as I said, now if the person who died was part of the group that's in conflict with your people, mm, but they were still a believer, you still have to do something to make it right. Um, if they were from a group you have a peace agreement with, you own both the action and the payment. And God mentioned it here in the verse. Um, also because slavery doesn't exist today, that part changes, and but the message, of course, doesn't. If you can't, do that symbolic act of freeing someone, then you should fast, you know, 2 full months. You know. Um. Okay. And what else? And also here, we see that the verse ends with a reminder. God knows and He's wise, meaning that, mashallah, this whole system isn't. It's not random, it's designed with wisdom by God's slave, subhanAllah. And if you see here, God mentioned all, situations in this Quran, complete, fully detailed, subhanAllah. Um, and 93, uh, an unforgettable offense. Anyone who kills a believer on purpose, his retribution is hell, wherein he abides forever. God is angry with him and condemned him, and has prepared for him a terrible retribution. So, mashallah, this verse gives one of the strongest warnings in the whole message. If someone kills a believer on purpose, not by accident, but like we said earlier, but intentionally, the punishment is hell. And it's not just for a short time, it says they remain there forever. We know that because the life doesn't belong to you. It's not yours to take it. Every soul belongs to God. So when someone takes a life without right, they're not just harming a person, they're, crossing a sacred line. And that's why the verse saying God is angry with them. He condemns them, and He has prepared a terrible punishment. Um, 94. O you who believe, if you strike in the cause of God, you should be absolutely sure. Do not say to the one who offers you peace, you are not a believer, seeking the spoils of this world, for God possesses infinite spoils. Remember that you used to be like them, and God blessed you. Therefore, you should be absolutely sure before you strike. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. Uh, and now, mashallah, this verse speaks directly to the people who believe. It starts with a warning. If you go out of a cause for a cause, um, you need, in a war, for example, you need to be absolutely sure. Um, Here it's telling us, don't rush, don't assume, don't act on guesswork, specifically in matters of life and death, you know. Um, then it says, if someone offers you peace, don't reject it just because you think they're not one of you. So don't say you're not a believer just because you want to gain something, you know, whatever land, money, power, statue. That's not just. Um, and the verse reminds us God has infinite spoils. In another words, if it's provision or reward you're chasing, God can give it in the right way without, hurting anyone unfairly, mashallah. Um, and then there is a reminder, you used to be like them. God says, it means you didn't always know the truth. You used to, you know, used to be, not a believer in the past, but not God, guided you, blessed you, and you should be thankful. And other people now are, like you in the past, so you have to be humble and also careful and be sure, be just, because in the end, God knows exactly what you do. He knows exactly our actions, our intentions, our motives, and nothing is hidden from him, mashallah. Um, so that's it. I'm gonna stop here, inshallah, and thank you for listening. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Mashallah, thank you. Great study.
Thank you.
MashaAllah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mashallah, thank you.
Mashallah. Thank you.
Brother, so I have a question. Like, where other verses it talks about fasting. Do we fast the same way as we will fast for Ramadan?
Yes.
Okay. Inshallah.
It says consecutive,
Mm-hmm.
like non-stop, you know,
Okay.
don't without any gaps.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you.
Mashallah, you're welcome. Yeah, so I wanted to also comment on verse 83 and 80, well, 83 in particular, right? because it talks about the devil's rumors, and it's important to understand that the devil encourages baseless rumors to mislead us, right? And we have a responsibility there as well. Like God tells us to um, you know um, not believe anything unless we can verify. Do not We can verify it, right? Because God says He has given you the ears, eyesight, and the brains, and we are responsible for using them, right? And so, and we know that rumors, comparing it to the time when the Quran was revealed, for example, right? We didn't have things like the internet and stuff where rumors can spread so quickly now. And you can see that a lot, and with the things that we have now, resources people have, like it's very easy for people to create misinformation and spread it. And um, it becomes very tricky. And so God says, there's a responsibility that we all have, generally speaking, like that applies to everything, right? But then also, this is talking about a specific situation where it affects the believer's security. And I don't really like to bring that up, but I think it's a good example that really helped me understand this verse. Like when I saw it play in front of me with a particular situation, like it really reminded me of this verse. And this had to do with the fact that this one guy, Peter, when he came up with this nonsense lie, saying that the submission app was being used to track all the submitters and being reported to the CIA, to give them their information. Now, this, you could say, this is a rumor that was created to put fear in people, to discourage them from using it as the ultimate goal, I guess, to promote his own paid application. But it also, it's something that could affect a person's sense of security and well-being. And privacy. So, these people, there were a lot of people, actually. Few people came up to me, at least one person, one or two people, I think, actually uh, came to verify that with me. But except for that person, one person, uh, uh, yeah, no one except for one person actually asked me to verify any of this information, right? And this was being spread, just out of nothing. Like this person made this news and started spreading it. So, in a similar fashion, like we can see, how sometimes it might be in someone else's favor to create, to fabricate false information and rumors, to take advantage of people in a certain way and cause damage to a certain group for a monetary gain or for some other personal gain, right? And God says that we have this responsibility that if such a rumor comes, someone who is knowledgeable about this thing, like in the case of let's say this particular issue, I would have been the person who knew about it because I was responsible for, taking care of, the data and stuff, like how if I was gonna sell it or whatever, so I would know about it. So they could come and ask me, what was happening or where the data is going, etc. Or if I was even collecting that data. But and so if they did, if for example, then obviously this issue would have been addressed. But for the most part, in this particular situation, the rumor was just spread to other people, and it discouraged a lot of people from using it at the time, and caused a lot of confusion and fear among people. So just wanted to share that. Um, And then also, I guess, um, it's really important for us to remember God's principle that He's nothing that He that all good comes from God, nothing bad comes from God. Anything bad that happens to us is from us, right? And so I think this is a good way for us to keep us in check. When we feel like um, you know we may have stepped out of God's kingdom, and bad things started happening. Like if those things didn't happen, like you would not even be aware that you have stepped out of God's kingdom, and you will not have a chance to like reflect on what you're doing or repent for anything that you might be doing wrong. And but this way also, God helps us. And but then it also, shows how merciful God is, and how kind God is, that He does not do things like that, and all of those things are in fact just executed by Satan. Where of course God has a system in place, there's a purpose for us being here, and to come into this world and being constituents of Satan. Those people who are going to be constituents of Satan, of course God is not responsible to protect them, because they're not going to be his constituents for the time that they're in Satan's kingdom, right? But the moment someone is in God's kingdom, God takes full care of that person, or those people that are. And I think, like for example, Psalms 91, is a good example of how God, even takes care of the believers. I mean, how God protects the believers in such a way that even if a stone is about to hit your foot, like the angels will come and take that stone away from you, right? So that your foot doesn't hit it, right? So you're not. And the message of the covenant, how he when he describes, he says, you will not even get a scratch, if you're in God's kingdom. Now, given that you could be in God's kingdom after passing your admissions test, but you can still step out, every now and then when you break God's law, for you to come back to God's kingdom, right? So it doesn't mean that if you pass your admissions test, you will not get a scratch, but you will definitely not get a scratch when you're in God's kingdom. So once you're in God's kingdom, you cannot get a scratch or a headache, even. You'll get a headache, yes, but you will get it when you have stepped out of God's kingdom, right? Or when you have not entered God's kingdom. But in God's kingdom, I mean, God is, there's no one like God, right? Who's aware of who's aware of his worshipers, and who takes full care of all our needs, to the point that he can even take care of our mental well-being, and our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, everything. He knows, what is happening around us, and he's taking full control of it, and keeping us, in his full protection, mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, and then also want to comment on verse 92. I mean, how people who don't believe in the Quran, they like to paint submission or Islam, as violent, in the Quran promoting violence, etc. But we can see that fighting is only allowed in self-defense, in the Quran, throughout the Quran, and especially, you know, uh, uh, if even if you kill a believer by accident, like you still have to take care of the victims, and then also if you have signed peace treaties with people, right? I mean, that on top of it, is also a big responsibility. God says the believers, the believing people, the righteous people, they keep their word, but the disbelievers and the hypocrites, they make agreements and they break them. you know they have no regard for keeping their promises and agreements. And so if you made a especially if you made a peace agreement with a certain group, even if you violated by accident, in this case, like, you killed a believer by accident, you've had a peace treaty with them. I mean, you're supposed to fast for 2 consecutive months, which is a big undertaking in itself, providing that you're also going to give compensation too, but then you're going to do this on top of it, just because, one, it shows that how sacred life is, but that, you just don't kill a person, for, just like, it's a huge uh, transgression, to kill someone. God says He has made life sacred, and we should not kill, and even God even discourages even capital punishment, right? So there's the point that, because other lives are affected, by this. But we can see, people around us, I mean, how quick they are to kill people. People who call themselves Muslims or Christians or anything, godly people have no trouble, no problem killing other people for personal and other reasons, right? And they hardly ever kill anybody for the sake of justice. It's always to benefit them in some way. And that, people go and they kill people. Sometimes people just go and kill people for no reason, just because it makes them feel better, uh, and or they want to, cover up their crimes or something like that, or get some kind of worldly benefits by getting rid of people that they don't want, that they may feel that they're a threat to them. And but the Quran is, making it very clear that, as I said, you shall not kill. God does not support, killing people. So, when we don't just go and kill people when we want, it's as an easy way out. It's the last resort to protect yourself. You know, and the Quran is very clear about that.
Mashallah. So I have a question, like kind of
Hmm.
on that. So, like, let's say
Hmm.
you're in France, like you're traveling with a few submitters or something. You're in France or Spain, and then you have, like, let's say a street criminal that tries to kidnap. You don't know if they're gonna kill this person, like the criminal's gonna kill you or nothing. And of course, none of us are being aggressors. We're just like going to eat somewhere or something. Uh, that type of aggression, you're not permitted to like end their life or something, but you're like at least like if someone's trying to kidnap you, uh, like especially a submitter, a brother or sister, how should you respond? Um, like I mean, obviously, like you would like step in and attack them and like physically, but like what if there's a couple of the criminals, like your common street criminal or something, just, a hypothetical scenario, you're traveling overseas or something in Europe, uh, you're not permitted
Assalamu alaikum, brother. You cut off a little bit in the end.
can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what's the safest approach? Because, yeah, these, like we were discussing, life is sacred, and we don't want to, and even, the Quran says, like, we don't, uh, like, it discourages capital punishment. You don't want to ever aggress less, and you don't want to like exceed the limits. So I guess I mean, inshallah, in a scenario like that would never happen, but you
Yeah,
know.
it's a good question, though, brother.
Yeah, because I mean, if you see that, like like let's just say you're in Spain, you're going on vacation with a few submitters, and hypothetical, you have people trying to like kidnap these people, and you don't know their intentions if they're going to take you and then try to kill you or something, or just, I mean, essentially oppress you in a worse way, which is worse than murder. I mean, is it permitted maybe to kill them if they're doing that, or maybe just step in and physically try to stop them, and then first that would be better, perhaps.
Yeah, but that's what I would think, like just try to like calm down the situation,
Right,
um like that's what I would think, more than just automatically, drying out, and
right.
I would feel like talking like how sometimes you see movies like people they talk to people and then they end up getting nervous and they just leave.
Uh-huh.
Like I've like in like sometimes maybe like you just talk to them and they end up like getting nervous, and maybe if you just say like what are you doing, maybe they'll snap out of it or something, but I feel
Yeah.
like yeah,
Hope,
like I
hopefully.
yeah. Right, but I feel like that would be like the better approach, like calming the situation down. Um, and of course that will be like easier as a submitter, because
Right.
you will need patience and stuff like that to do. Like if someone doesn't have patience, they will just panic.
Right. Yes, I guess
Uh,
if we see like if the enemy, like we're just talking about a common street criminal in Europe or something, like if they had a weapon and then you see them actively trying to take, that's when it would call, I guess, for a situation like that. But yeah, just a question, because like these verses are very, mashallah, very important. Um, as we were talking, like life is sacred, and we don't want to exceed the limits even a tiny bit, or an atom's weight, you know. And like before you strike, like we read today, you should be absolutely sure. So, but okay, mashallah.
inshallah.
Mashallah, and I like verse 82, about proof of divine authorship, and it's so awesome because we can look at any part of the miracle and, at whatever time, and then, witness uh, how great it is, and like we actually have the truth, and we're not left in confusion like most people are, and then even we were at one point or many points like before submission, throughout our lives. So thank God, you know.
Mashallah, brother. Yeah, growing up, I know you grew up with Christianity, and I did too. You hear these stories, a lot of false contradictions, a lot of false things about um, the prophet Jesus, and they say all these nonsense and these lies about him, and once we come to the truth, you know, um, we are able to um, in the Quran we are able to see like who Jesus was really, like the miracles that he was blessed with, like the miracle of him talking like as a baby, and yeah, subhanallah, brother, like you said, it's a true blessing to have the proof.
Sorry, I got cut off. So, you were saying something about a person traveling with friends in France.
Yeah, brother John.
Was it very particular, quite specific question?
Um, yeah,
Hey, I
yeah.
think my service is what happened?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got dropped when you were
Okay.
asking a question. Yeah,
Can y'all hear me? Okay.
yeah. You said you're
Okay.
traveling with a bunch of friends in France.
Hang on, I think uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
brother.
think you have
Yeah,
spotty connection. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty spotty. It
Mhm.
should get better soon.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
yeah. Okay, so
Mhm.
yeah, what? Yeah, no, I just had like a question because like, mashallah, very good verses, about life being sacred. And so no,
Mhm.
I just, for uh, the question purposes on air and all that. So like, you have a hypothetical, like you're traveling with submitters, like fellow submitters, let's say to Spain or something overseas, and you come
Mhm.
across, a common street criminal, little thug, who
Mhm.
is trying to kidnap them, and then, I mean, are we supposed to take that like as an attack on our brother's or sister's life, or and therefore respond in the uh,
Well, I
like
mean, you have to defend yourself, right? I mean, if they're trying to kill you, of course, you have to
right?
defend yourself, right?
Yeah, because I mean, we don't know where this. I mean, especially if it's like one or two people, you don't know if they're gonna
Mhm.
take this person and then kill them or send them off to some horrible uh, place. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah, I mean, fighting is
um,
allowed. God allows fighting in self-defense. So,
right.
yeah.
But we can't. We're not supposed to ever go up and obviously, like yes, so we won't go up and attack these people. But if they're actively trying to kidnap somebody or attack
Mhm.
one of us, and
Yeah, but also you don't have
yeah,
to
we
kill the
can.
person, you know? You don't have to kill the person who's, let's say, someone comes, you're in France or whatever, and someone's just trying to snatch your purse. You don't, I mean, I would try not to kill that person, just because he's trying, like,
Right,
you can
right.
shoot him in the leg or something, or,
Yeah,
just punch him
yeah,
in the stomach or, something.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they're trying to kidnap a person, like that's like so wicked because like you hear, people kidnapping people like children in ice cream vans or these fake. I mean, it's
Hmm.
the same thing, and then I mean, horrible things happen, and then, but yeah, so, mashallah,
Yeah, I mean, killing is, God talks about capital punishment when it's justified, right? And God talks about
Right.
how you can't even kill a male for the female or the female for the male. So you know, um,
And we have to be absolutely sure, too. So like before we
mhm,
strike. But I mean, like when we see something like some gross evil happening,
mhm.
that's like we're absolutely sure at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, brother Suleiman, because maybe if you do that, they will stop aggressing, and then now you
Mhm,
can't, you know, you're
mhm.
not allowed to aggress once,
Yeah.
inshallah.
Right there. Any other comments or questions? All right. So I guess if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude our study. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Huda, so much for leading the study. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.